You're listening to the Membership Geeks podcast, bringing you proven practical tips and advice from the leading experts on growing a successful membership business.
What's up, everyone? Mike Morrison here, your host for the Membership Geeks podcast and founder of both Membership Geeks and Membership Academy. I'm so glad that you're joining me for today's episode. How the devil are you? I hope everything is going well in your world. If you're new to the show, first of all, welcome. You have discovered the number one podcast for membership owners everywhere, where I dispense weekly advice, tips, insights, and random musings on how to grow a sustainable, profitable, successful membership business that is also highly, highly enjoyable, because I know I'm a bit biased, but memberships are just so much fun. Think about it. Our job is that we get to hang out with people who are as passionate about our topic as we are. We get to be around our people day in, day out. What's more fun than that? So if you are new to the show, make sure you hit subscribe in order to ensure that, just as the great Steven Tyler from Aerosmith would have wanted, or does want, I mean, he's still alive, right? Hit subscribe so that you will not miss a thing. Man, that is a tired joke that I have recycled time and time again here on the podcast over the last decade. And if you are a long-term listener, you have heard that joke a whole bunch of times, but thank you for sticking with me despite that terrible, terrible recurring. I can't even call it a joke now because it's not funny. All right, today we are talking about where retention and marketing meet. Without question, we all know memberships are a retention business. If this is news to you, then this is something you need to get to grips with pretty quick. Because with a lot of products that people sell online, whether it's ebooks, whether it's courses, whether it's paid workshops, live events, the sale is the finish line. It's the end of the marketing process. But with a membership, the sale is the starting pistol. What happens after the sale is more important than the sale itself, because it's not enough to just get someone to transact with you that one time. You need to convince them to keep paying you month after month, year after year. And so member retention, subscriber retention is the entire ball game when it comes to memberships. Memberships cannot survive on that first sale. You need to make sure not only are you attracting people to your membership, but you are attracting the right kind of people who will stick around month after month, year after year. Without that, your entire business will collapse. And so the way in which you market is perhaps the cornerstone. It's the first link in the chain of your member retention strategy. Because if you're marketing in a way that brings in the wrong kind of people, that brings in people who are more likely to leave after month one than they are to stick around for a year or 2 years, then your marketing will ultimately be leading to retention disaster. So retention starts with the way that you market. I really want you to understand and to embrace that and to develop this long-term view when it comes to your marketing, because marketing for a membership, the success is not measured by how many new signups you get. True success comes from how well those signups, those sales you get, actually stay subscribed. How long do they stick around? So there's a few sales tactics and marketing techniques that may very well be highly effective for actually getting that initial sale, but that are far more likely to be bringing people in with the wrong kind of mentality or in the wrong kind of way and resulting in much higher rates of early cancellation. For one, if you are using any sort of marketing strategy that heavily relies on urgency and scarcity, that will almost always move the needle in terms of sales. But in so many cases, in fact, the majority of cases, it will make it far more likely that that person will have buyer's remorse, or that person will have joined when they're not actually ready. And this realization kicks in within their first couple of weeks, within the first couple of months, and ultimately would lead to somebody cancelling. Because the whole thing with urgency and scarcity, it's designed to push people into making a buying decision that they otherwise might not have made organically. And there would be a reason why they would not have made that buying decision organically. Whether that is just they didn't have the funds, whether it is because they don't have the time in their life, maybe it's because they're too early in their journey and they would actually be better off if they were to wait 6 months or so. Urgency and scarcity is all typically aimed at forcing people to make that purchase decision at a time they otherwise wouldn't. But the problem is, once the deadline's passed, once that pressure on that customer has passed and has eased, and it comes to them actually using the membership, well, hey, if they hadn't had the money to join, if that was the reason why they were going to hold off, well, the first time they come to getting rebilled, that problem's going to rear its head again, except this time they don't have all of the marketing hype. They don't have the deadline, the ticking clock. So they're just going to cancel because their financial situation is not changed. And so they leave. If the reason they weren't going to join on their own was because they didn't have time in their life, well, that doesn't change when they join because they have had scarcity tactics pushed upon them. That doesn't suddenly free up time in their life. It doesn't suddenly make them prioritize your membership. So again, a couple of weeks into your membership, they're going to have that remorse. Well, I knew I shouldn't have joined because I'm too busy for this. So they leave. If they joined before they were ready, maybe they didn't have all the fundamentals in place within their life or their business to be able to make the most of your membership. Again, that's not going to have changed. That realization will kick in, and so they will leave. So again, we really need to be developing this longer term view of our marketing strategy, not just looking at the sales conversion rate, not just looking at, hey, I just completed my launch campaign, I've just closed the doors on another successful sales promo, and I got all of these sales. Fantastic. Let's reconvene in 12 months' time and look at what the churn rate of those new members was. And let's consider the impact that the marketing methods which you used in order to get those people through the doors would have had on their likelihood of actually sticking around. So anything using urgency and scarcity is something to consider. Again, this applies to things like discounts and to offers. Again, discounts and offers, sometimes, it can provide a little bit of a sweetener for people who are going to join anyway. Same as urgency tactics and scarcity tactics. Sometimes those things are not the drivers of sales. There'll always be a small proportion of the people who come in when those tactics are used who are going to join anyway. They did have the money, they did have the time, they just needed a little bit of a fire lighting under their butt. And cool, that's great, but they are the exception and not the rule. Same with discounts and offers. Discounts and offers are typically used to bring people off the fence who could not afford. They didn't necessarily have the finances in place, or they didn't see the financial value of investing in your membership. Again, the situation's unlikely to change unless you get lucky. So somebody who couldn't afford to join at your full rate and they make that jump when you've discounted, their first month, maybe it's 15, 20% off for their first few months. Maybe it is just a rolling discount. But typically for a membership, you're not going to offer a discount that's permanent, that's long term. If you're going to discount, it's going to be on the first payment, maybe on the first quarter, maybe it's a trial or something like that. Once that promotional period where they're getting it a little bit cheaper, once that ends and the full price kicks in, you've got the same problem again. If affordability was the very thing that caused someone to be swayed by a discount or an offer, then that's going to kick in again when things revert to full price. And while I absolutely never recommend giving a permanent discount on the membership rebill, because that's not fair on your existing members, if you were to do that, typically the discount is going to be so small. You're looking at 10, maybe 20% maximum discount on every monthly payment. And we're talking about such fine margins. If somebody can't afford $50 a month, but they'll afford $40 a month, that's too small and too narrow a margin to be sustainable, because all that it needs is for one of the thing that person's paying for in their life to become a little more expensive. And then all of a sudden, your membership's potentially on the chopping block. So marketing that is very heavily anchored around price sensitivity, again, far more likely to bring in those members who start off with a higher risk of churn. Making heavy use of bonuses can have the same kind of downside as well, because your membership undoubtedly offers incredible value already. If someone needs to be given one extra workshop to join your membership that's already got 40 or 50 workshops in it, or has a new workshop every month, someone needs to be motivated by a bonus one-on-one session with you. Like, if what you're offering in your membership isn't already enough, then what happens once that little sugar high of getting that little something extra wears off? Are they going to truly understand the value they're getting from your membership if that membership on its own wasn't valuable enough to them already? So again, this is probably going to have less of an impact on long-term retention as scarcity tactics, as discounts on pricing. But you've got to kind of think, okay, if we need to employ this thing to get over the line, what does that tell me about that person? How do they perceive the standard level of value this membership offers if that in and of itself was not enough? We've really got to question things like this. So if you're using things like bonuses, if you're using things like prize draws to get people through the doors, and it isn't all just about them and how they respond to offers and deadlines and all that sort of stuff. The biggest culprit, or one of the biggest culprits for the kind of marketing that ends up backfiring in terms of long-term retention, is membership owners who hugely overpromise. They oversell. They really, really go over the top with their value proposition. They promise the earth and they just have no way of delivering on that. If your membership ever feels like a bait and switch, if it ever feels like it's a letdown, if you have marketed it in a way that makes it sound like it is the cure-all, it is the proven formula, the guarantee, the magic beans, then you're asking for your members to churn. You're asking for members to leave early. It's very, very easy to market your membership as some magic solution. You might genuinely feel like you have the guaranteed framework, the guaranteed formula, but I'm sad to say such a thing just does not exist in life, in business, in any field whatsoever. But audiences are very easily seduced by the idea of a proven, guaranteed product, formula, system, framework. It's human nature. We are wired internally to seek these things out. And that's why when you offer this, when you promise this to people, that you are simply not going to be able to back up, because there is no one-size-fits-all approach to anything in life. And even if there were, you cannot control what your members do and how effectively they implement this mythical, magical formula that will guarantee a result, a positive outcome. You cannot control their execution. So even if you did have the magic beans, you can't control where people plant them and what they do with them, right? So you're going to have this issue if you're overpromising in your marketing, if you're overdoing it with the hype, then you are asking for your members to churn. So ultimately, all of this is just drilling into you the necessity to have this long-term mindset, the necessity to realize and recognize, first and foremost, memberships are a retention business. What happens after the sale is significantly more important than getting the sale itself. You do not want to be wasting time, effort, resources, the attention of your audience, your ad budgets, the goodwill of your network, your partners, and all of that. You do not want to be wasting all of that on a marketing and a sales strategy that ultimately is bringing the wrong kind of people in, that is bringing in high churn risk members, because your membership will not last. It cannot last. So please do take that to heart. Please do ensure that you are looking at your marketing strategies with a retention lens, because that is the ball game when it comes to memberships. And hopefully today's episode has given you a little food for thought, a little perspective adjustment that you can take with you when you're planning out your next promotional campaign, your next membership launch, or your next few months marketing activity. That is it from me. I'm going to put away that little soapbox. I do hope you found today's episode useful. If so, make sure you are subscribed and make sure you join me next week for another episode of the Membership Geeks podcast. Bye for now. If you enjoyed this week's episode of the Membership Geeks podcast, we invite you to check out membershipacademy.com. Membership Academy is the original membership about memberships, and it's the essential resource for anyone at any stage of starting, growing, and running a successful online membership business. Whether you're still trying to figure out what your idea is going to be and you need some help making it a reality, or whether your website is already up and running and you're looking for ways to grow and attract new members, then Membership Academy can help you to get to the next level. Not only do you get access to our step-by-step membership roadmap, our extensive training library, and exclusive member-only discount and tools, you'll also become part of our supportive, active community of membership owners that will help you along the way in your journey with feedback, encouragement, and advice. All of this and more make Membership Academy the #1 place to be for anyone looking to start, manage, and grow a successful membership business. Check it out and join the community at membershipacademy.com.